Chris Brown, Chris Trapasso with you, and pleased to be joined now by the Executive Director of the Senior Bowl, Jim Nagy, joining us here to kind of bounce some prospects off of him that he's had a little bit closer look at than the likes of us. And Bills fans are pretty convinced that Gabe Davis is going to sign some big money deal in free agency and be out the door, knowing the Bills' cap issues. They're $50 million over, probably can't afford to re-sign a guy like that. And so we begin again to look for the next guy, and it's a good receiver class, as you well know, and you had a handful of them at the Senior Bowl, and I kind of want to rifle through these guys just for your take on them. So I'll just start with Tez Walker, and we'll go from there. Like just a kind of a thumbnail sketch of what you should expect from him.
Sure. No, first of all, thanks for having me. Appreciate it. I hope Tez has a good week down here because in Mobile, like he was our second fastest player on the Zebra technology stuff that the Bills have at their facility. So it's apples to apples for the league. So he got open deep. I mean, he got open all week. He struggled finishing on the football. You didn't see that on his college tape, so I hope. The week kind of snowballed on him, but he's a true deep threat. He's very smooth. Corners really underestimate him because he's coming off the line. And he doesn't look like he's moving. Next thing you know,
right?
he's by you. Yep. So yeah, he's a guy that coming into our week, Daniel Jeremiah had pumped him up on our. We do a roster reveal show on the NFL Network, and DJ talked about him maybe being a first round pick. And then he struggled catching the ball. So, but yeah, he's been through a lot in his life. If you Google Tez Walker and what he's been through a lot. I think the teams are going to like that. He's really persevered, but he's one of the best deep threats in this draft.
Did you call him more of a straight line guy, or
no? He's not, and that's a good question because a lot of those guys, when you call them home run threats and deep threats, they're just kind of this. No, he's got a little bit of this. He can run some routes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm the biggest fan. I'm the conductor of the Javon Baker train. I'm like, hey, if the Bills want to pick him at 28, go ahead and do it. Talk about the week that he had in Mobile, which I'm pretty sure was pretty good, but you can get into more of the intricacies of what happened there. And then just, again, that thumbnail sketch of what type of player he is, transferring from Alabama to UCF, and then culminating with that week in Mobile.
Yeah, think about that room he was in Tuscaloosa with, Waddle and Judy and Ruggs and all those guys. So he was a bit of a difficult eval for me because sometimes along the way, like you hear things and they stick in your head and you got to fight it. So I was at an Auburn game this fall. My son actually goes to school at Auburn, so I'm in the press box. And I'm talking to a group of scouts about guys that'd seen it. I was asking them about the smaller schools in Florida. Like, I'd seen all the Florida tape. I'd seen Miami. I'd seen Florida State. But I'm like, is there anyone at USF? Is there anyone at UCF? Is there anyone at FAU, FIU? Yeah. And a couple of the guys brought up Baker, and they're like, I just don't think he can run. And so, like, that stuck in the back of my mind. And I'm watching the tape. I'm like, God, I don't see that. I don't see a guy that can't run. And you talk about route running with this guy can run routes now. I mean, he can snap off routes. He's got really cool ball skills. And he can run it. So it's cool to see him kind of ascend. He was really, I'm just being honest, like he was down the line for us. I don't think we added Baker until the beginning of January. Wow. Like he wasn't one of those invites that went on in November, and now because I had that speed question, I think the scouts, the teams just didn't seem that high on him.
You almost wanted to see for yourself.
So now I'm really glad that he came down and had a good week, and because of guys like you, he's building traction, and I've had a number of NFL teams be like, I'm really glad you brought him because we saw him against really good group of corners, and he got open all week. So he's a good one. He's kind of a sleeper.
Xavier Legette, I know he comes to the Senior Bowl and he only measures 6'1", and people are like, oh, he's not as tall as I thought he was. But I don't know that matters if you watch his tape because he is dynamic. There are a lot of people that think if he tests well here, and he's expected to, that he could start to creep up into the bottom of round one where the Bills are sitting. Just your thoughts on him and what you feel he is.
Well, those people that thought he was like 6'3" or 6'4", don't follow me on Twitter because I put it out there in the spring. I mean, he was 6'007". He's not even 6'1".
Yeah.
But he plays big, which is important. That's way more. I'd rather have a 6'1" guy that plays big than a 6'3" guy that doesn't. He's one of the best stories in the draft. I mean, this guy, again, talking about off the radar, when we did South Carolina over the summer, I didn't even watch this guy. And then he comes out. He had 100 and I'm doing this off the top of my head. I think he had 167 yards as a junior in 2022 total, and then he goes out week one against North Carolina, has 178 yards in the first game. And I'm like, okay, now we got something here. Watch the tape, and he was fast, and he was making contested catches. And this guy, he's run down on kickoff team, he's run down on punt team, he's returned kicks. He does the dirty work. So he's got like this cool background that all the teams are going to like from his and then he has this breakout year this year. And I think he is going to test well. I mean, if you're just going off the tape, I think he could run it. I think he could touch in the high 4.3s, and I hope he does. And I hope he does because there's
At
tape.
that weight, that would be impressive.
Yeah, at 227 pounds or 225,
crazy.
whatever he weighed in at here. I mean, you've seen the tape. I mean, he pulls away from people.
That's what I was going to ask.
He runs away from people.
That was going to be my follow-up because you see it, and he's just – you don't expect a guy that's that thickly built to be pulling away from, like, thin-frame DBs who look like track guys.
In the
Georgia.
SEC.
At Georgia.
Right. And then he does it. And it's just like, oh, my God, what's this guy going to run? Like, I'm really intrigued to see what his 40 time is going to be. Because if he does what you think he's going to do, he is going to be in the bottom of the first round.
And I'll say this, too, about Xavier Leggett. I really appreciate guys that come to Mobile that aren't 100% and still want to go through the week. And you go back and watch our practice tape. He had a lower leg wrap on, I forget which leg it was. But he wasn't 100%. He went out there and went through the week and practiced every day. Jackson Powers Johnson, the center from Oregon, did the same thing. He came in with a hamstring injury and popped it at the end of the second day. But no, I really think Leggett is a guy, in terms of like height, weight, speed in this draft that can also run routes. I mean, I posted a clip on Twitter the other day of this guy like sinking at the top of a route, like breaking off a route. I mean, there are not too many guys his size that can do that. Mm-hmm. So he would be, late one, hopefully for him, but I don't think he's getting out of the top 50 picks.
Right. Yeah.
Do you think there's any concern with him that there was only that 1 year of high-level production? Was that guys in front of him? Was there any backstory to why that happened? Because on film, like you're saying, this year, it's like, how did this guy only have 167 yards in 2022?
Right. Now, there's been other good receivers at South Carolina, but I think, digging into it a little bit, he was just a little slow to mature, and that happens with these guys, right? Like, there wasn't any off-the-field issues. There's no character concerns. Like, some guys just, the work ethic clicks, and talking to the guys, Shane Beamer and those guys this year, his work ethic from the end of last season and the work he put in to the start of this season, that's what it was all about. This guy worked his tail off. And now that now that's who he is. He saw the results too. Like you put in the work, you see the results. Okay, this is why I'm the player I am now. He's going to keep working. So,
in a draft class that has its fair share of true X receivers, Ladd McConkey is a guy that can line up outside. He's not an X, but it almost seems like he's tailor-made skill set wise for slot play. Would you agree with that?
He's going to be really good in there, and he can play outside because he can run. A lot of times you just stick guys inside because they can't get vertical. Ladd was just going back to the summer when we did the junior tape. Roma Dunze was our top-rated senior wide receiver on our board, and Ladd was too. And so no, Ladd's a guy that I've really liked because he's quick and fast. He can run routes. He can separate. He can play inside, outside. He can return punts. Like, I know he was dinged up a little bit this year, but we all saw what that Georgia offense was like when he's full go. I mean, this guy's ready. This guy's ready to go. Last year we had Puka Nacua from the Senior Bowl came in right away, and Tank Dell and Jaden Reed. We had a lot of guys from last year's receiver group. Like, to me, Ladd, if you draft Ladd, like, he's on the field next year and he's catching 60, 70, 80 balls for you.
Do you think he's going to test well enough to be late one, early two? Because I think he's a good athlete on film. I don't think he's great route runner with great hands, but limited athlete. I feel like he could ultimately test his way into the back portion of the first round.
I agree. Yeah, I think he's explosive. It would not surprise me at all if he gets into the 4.37, 4.38. Again, the vertical speed showed up more on 2022 tape. You saw him playing outside more and getting vertical. I don't know if that was because of the injury this year that they didn't really let him open up as much. But he can go. He can get down the field. That was the only knock off his junior tape is that he got vertical and he didn't finish on a few. He dropped some deep balls that he could have converted for Stetson Bennett. But yeah, I would be more surprised if he ran high 4.4s than if he ran high 4.3s.
Okay, yep.
I think he's going to, if he's in, I would expect lower 4.4, but high 4.3 is possible.
If you needed a poster child for what the Senior Bowl does for people, it might be Malachi Corley, converted running back, right? So, I mean, this guy, he comes down there and puts together a pretty nice week. I know it's a deep receiver class, which might probably push him down the board maybe further than he would in a lighter class. Do you kind of like the week that he was able to put together there? Like,
yeah, he and Ladd were the two receivers that were voted Practice Player of the Week on their side. And again, that's voted on by the other team's defensive backs. So to me, that's meaningful. That's the one thing when I got to the Senior Bowl. That's one of the tweaks that I made was we don't need scouts and myself voting on the players of the week. I want to know from the guys that
that's
to
right.
me, to me, that's more meaningful if you're a player. Corley's a guy that, because it's a group. It's weird to say group of 5 players are small school players now, but because of the portal, that's basically what they are. I think we were averaging, 10, 11, 12 guys that were FCS, Division II, Division III, my first 4 or 5 years at the Senior Bowl. And now I think we're down to maybe 5 this year. So that number is really, so a group of 5 player. Yes, did he play up in a couple games? He did, but to see him against the DB crew that we had in Mobile this year helped a lot, and then to see him run routes that we didn't see a lot of routes run in that Western Kentucky offense. But the one thing that carries over, from college tape to pro tape, if you can do things with the ball in your hands, which Corley can.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of Deebo Samuel comparisons. I hate that because it's putting a lot on Malachi Corley to call him Deebo Samuel, but he is really aggressive and strong and powerful with the ball in his hands. So I think he'll go somewhere in round 2.
Yeah.
Switching gears to the defensive side, we saw Braden Fisk from Florida State. He's continued that rise. He started in Mobile, had a great week there. Give us your thoughts on him, and I'll go super specific with this. Really short arms, but on film, I didn't really see that creating a lot of an issue. And then last night, test through the roof. Do you see him as a solidified day 2 guy? The Bills do need some help next to Ed Oliver on that defensive line.
Yeah, certainly day 2. I think coming into Senior Bowl, just based off the feedback we got in the fall when we did invite Braden right out of the chute. He was one of my favorite guys on tape this year, but I still thought like 4th round is where he was probably going to go. And then after Mobile, definitely day 2. And after yesterday, I don't think he gets out of the 2nd round. Maybe, but I totally agree on the arm length thing. You don't see that show up. He's so active with his hands, and he's so quick off the ball. If you go back over the Senior Bowl practice tape and watch every rep this guy takes in like team periods, he's the first one in the game. He's the first one off the ball every single snap. Wow. It's unbelievable. So he gets on you. He gets on you quick, and he's so good with his hands. It's just a fun story, man. I mean, the Western Michigan kid that he's just got a great attitude, and I don't need to tell the whole story, but we flipped him on game day. He practiced all week with the American team. We have some roster attrition on Saturday morning. The D-line coach for the national team's freaking out. He doesn't have enough inside guys. I call Braden up. I'm like, hey, dude, meet me down by the escalators here in 20 minutes. I got to talk to you about something. And the reason I picked him for that was because I knew he wouldn't bat an eye. Yeah. I mean, some of the other guys I looked and like that's hard for a player. You go through a week with a bunch of teammates, and he's like, Coach, I don't care. I just want to play. Yeah. So again, you're talking about like the right makeup, the right practice habits. Elite tester. Mm-hmm. I mean, what he did yesterday was ridiculous. Crazy. And then you put on the tape, and he's super disruptive. I mean, and it doesn't for the Bills fans that want to know about Braden Fisk, and maybe they're pulling him up, like sack production, TFL production. All I'm going to say is like this guy is the guy that blows stuff up, and other people clean up for him. Yeah. I mean, he's the disruptor.
When I watched his get off, the first person I thought of, and maybe this is my Buffalo myopia, but I was like, wow, there's a little Kyle Williams in there.
Taller, but yes.
Yes, but like the get off, because Kyle's
absolutely.
always like a half a beat ahead of everybody, and he is too.
Yep.
This guy's an enigma for me, so I need your help. Jalix Hunt, Houston Christian, tests great yesterday. Would you consider, and I kind of see him like this because I was watching his tape and I'm trying to get a handle on him. He looks like a raw guy that's like this moldable piece of clay.
Yep.
So if you're a team that's going to draft him, you have to invest time in him, right? For
sure. Yeah. No, he's again, I get caught up in the backstory of the player sometimes because I think it helps paint a picture. But this guy was in the Ivy League a few years ago playing safety. And now he goes to Houston. And he just kept growing and growing. And he goes to Houston Christian. He's playing outside linebacker. A couple things on Jay. Like, we saw the testing yesterday. It was at the top of everything.
Yeah, ridiculous.
Expected, though, right?
Really explosive. The thing that stood out during Senior Bowl week was the physicality, setting the edge in some of the run periods. I mean, this dude is – you worry about that. Okay, Ivy League kid, DB. Like, how physical is this guy going to be at the point of attack? And he was cracking people down in Mobile, so he's got that to him. And then you got this athlete. So yes, are you picking him for 2024 season? Probably not. He'll probably be a really good special teams player, but you're drafting him for 25, 26 and see what you can hit on. But again, competitor, made of the right stuff, confident. Sometimes we bring small school players to the Senior Bowl. They're a little overwhelmed. This dude's wired right, so I'm excited to see what he's going to be in 2 or 3 years.
Last one for me, I have to ask you about Cameron Kinchins. The Bills hire Jamil Adai from the University of Miami.
My guy.
So tell me about, like, going into this last season, like, watching Kinchin's junior film. I was like, this is a first-round guy all the way. 2023 was still good. The production was still there. Maybe not quite as good. Do you still think he is like I don't want to say elite level, like top 16, top 10 overall pick, but how do you kind of view him after his 2023 season?
I just don't think a lot of safeties go in the first round.
That's true.
You know,
That's true.
it's just a position teams like to wait on. I do think he goes somewhere in day 2. I think he's a starter, most importantly. I mean, I always defer back to working for a team. And you can say what you want about these guys, describe them, talk about them ad nauseum, but what are they going to be? I think Kinchin's is a starter, and he can run. He's interchangeable. He's got some free. He's got some strong to his skill set, so he's a cool player that way. And, again, just another guy. Like, we could bring juniors to the game this year, and he's been a guy that's been projected high, and he didn't bat an eye. He wanted to come compete.
Jim, thanks for the time as always. We appreciate it. It's kind of cool to get like some of the behind the scenes stuff, the escalator story. That's fantastic.
Yeah,
like who's going to know that? I mean, but that's kind of the same stuff that scouts and GMs are looking for. Like that story carries weight for people like that. I just want to play, coach. Like, you know what I mean? That kind of thing. So yeah, thanks for sharing. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, guys.
And you've done a great job with the Senior Bowl, by the way. Way to grow that thing. It's really, really, really good for the players, and you're getting better players because of it.